Welcome to the Poetry Box Live. I'm Shawn Aveningo Sanders, and I'll be your host for tonight's show. For those of you who might be joining us for the first time, my husband Robert and I run a small boutique press here in Portland, Oregon, known as the Poetry Box. The Poetry Box Live is our way of supporting our talented authors to help them connect with their audience. And for our April show, we get to celebrate National Poetry Month. And for me, poetry is that magical unicorn of all art forms. It can lift us up with grand celebration, thank you, Amanda Gorman, pluck a petal of joy within life's seemingly mundane everydayness, and has the power to build a more compassionate community by forcing us to look beyond ourselves, to listen, to learn, to heal. And through poetry, we can praise the communion of human bonding, delight in our relationship with nature and their animal world, and even find hope through humor and music in the midst of a pandemic. And with that said, I am very excited to present three fabulous poets for you today. Sally Naylor will be joining us from Florida, Penelope Scambly Schott from here in Oregon, and David Belmont reading from New York City. So let's get started with our first reader. Sally Naylor, author of Synapse Flies into Startle. Sally Naylor is a bit of a three-legged stool. She's a poet, a therapist, and a teacher. Sally studied with Campbell McGrath in the FIU MFA program. She thrived in classes with Maxine Kumin, Gerald Stern, Ilya Kaminsky, and Tony Hoagland. Lucky you. Sally is the associate editor of SoFlo Pojo, which I think is the Southern Florida Poetry Journal. She teaches community workshops for the Palm Beach Poetry Festival, writes memoir as well as text and workbooks for neophytes, and offers Zoom shops for emerging poets. Please welcome Sally Naylor.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here this evening. Before I start reading, I would like to acknowledge Ilya Kaminsky, one of my teachers. I was in his workshop about 2 years ago and a little scared. I had written an orgasm poem and I was tentative. So I presented it to the class and he actually liked it. As a matter of fact, he said, you ought to put together a collection and write an orgasm book. So I considered that and I thought, that's very exciting. I appreciated his encouragement, but I needed the right attitude in order to do it. And I found it with E.E. Cummings' epigraph in my book. Cummings writes, a comic tadpole wriggling in delicious mud. So that's essentially the attitude I took into writing this book, and it seemed to work well. I made a lot of mud pies. All right, so I'm going to start. My first poem is the poem that I presented to Ilya at that workshop. After the last orgasm. After the last orgasm oscillates, it becomes the undulating spiral down of a leaf or giggle, word fluff, half alms, and slow motion, sloppy scampers, light breeze, soft bangles, throbs pulsed round some bemused cleric's imaginary harpsichord, or string quartet sounds, green whistles, high riddles, as the last turn all dogma sideways song crescendos into a final upside down broadcast from the control tower, iterating, then reiterating what it already knows. Ceiling and visibility unlimited. Transformed into playgrounds, people with John Cleese silly walks, a puppy's zigzag wobble, or crown of sonnets, as you loll about, Ms. O, wondering if the future hinges more on your own deft fingers or his midnight tongue. Okay. And this next, titled To Couple. I always wanted to live in music, maybe Pachelbel, Corelli, or one of the Brandenburgs, loving the Covenant, the Dazzle, the pure, bold Mozart son of it, become all April, scudding clouds, rain, showers, haiku, narcissus, and violin prayers, melody, counterpoint, crescendo, like the body of a bird stepping into God, that kind of reach or surge. Join me. Thank you, thank you. This next is titled Urge. Drunk on ink joy, I'm sculpting consonants into rapture, considering my obsessions. Is orgasm as close to God as I've ever come? Or is it more metaphor, disease? Why do the lowly and the holy so often intrigue? Why zigzag my smart-ass libido in loop-de-loops across white landscape, probing essence of orgasm? Is it fear of death or some kind of intimate atrocity? Is it the oh of self, selflessly offering up an Elysian paradox, a poet's prayer? Or is it a mere land grab? Is it time for adverbs to parse and fuck grammatically? To witness and to merge, to share skin, worship invention, now, light as the serious clowns of our collaborative, wet, pulsing concoctions, I seek the gate into the garden, seek to become mere seed, take root, leaf up, and become misting, earthbound, flesh sense, to bud, to sprout, to knead, to stroke, to mouth, oh, to feather, tingle, then harden and fly all synapse into startle. No time clocks in, only the coupling, the need to morph into an other, an ether, as voices fizzle into infinite threads of unchurched tensions, space of trinity, of twins, our you, our me, all the God self-darlings made flesh, fallen yet holy, the adagio to presto of Arcangelo Corelli. Seaman, amen, amen. Thank you. Okay. This next, The Sex of Language, there's an epigraph, Ralph Waldo Emerson, who says, the earth laughs in flowers. The Sex of Language. Copulation, as clinical as an antiseptic mouth swab, wears sensible shoes and a white lab coat of polyester. It declaims its palaver in expository, polysyllabic, peer-reviewed, well-documented Latinate prose. But consider the yellow powder, stem, pistil, stamen, roots, and seduction of the ruffled leaf, a fluted vessel, of quiver and entwine, of the seminal flowering, unfurling blossoms of the lady slipper, or blue Danube orchid, of lush rainforest rife with moisture. Consider the contagions and persuasions of formal literary propagations. Compare that to the more idiomatic screw, fuck, the happy gyrations of my opening remarks and sallies, riding the salty thrusts of your body through to epilogue. Thank you. And this next is called Pitching Woo. Love is not the body, but it is of the body. Let this remain the sun in preamble, the last murmur before release. For ours is the dance greened with buds, part cilantro, part surf. Breathe. In Chagall's birthday, we levitate as you hover slightly above, bouquet in hand, neck craned backwards, somewhere beyond the mirth of your oh so radiant face. Sing a chorus of fern tendrils laced with fervor and nutmeg. Pan-piping flutes laud your wily goat's grace as seagulls spiral the landscape, while slow motion pirouettes float us higher, higher. For it is summer in paradise, and we are eons away from our old lives or gravid. And shifting tones slightly. For the seekers, what I want to know is how to kiss those social scientists goodbye, so specific, measurable, concrete, hugging stats, graphs, case histories, smelling a lot like goals in lab coats. How to say yes to the great lie, the hope that after engorgement or any other promising venue, after all the undulations, the symphony, improv, sonnet, or drama of orgasm, how to still believe the myth that you will be released from self, if only for moments, from the longing to be one, to be separate from all that longing, for where in the wanting of release is release, which you will learn and learn again. And as always, you won't get there or anywhere. Pilgrim, tell me how to sabotage, integrate, or embrace the great lies. Is there a hint in the communion of joining and getting nowhere together? Or is that just one more mirage? What I really want to know is, okay, the next poem. This is called A Fabulous Tower, long Rapunzel hair. And yes, this tiny ballerina is no accounts receivable, head bowed, hand over heart, hands clasped in prayer. We know her to be a devout, but only in the electric riff or private temple of her dreams as she chants, Red Rover, Red Rover. After the tomboy years, Miss O harpsichords a fevered Brandenburg, clamors to reach out, fiddle, learn languages without ears, retrieve her first cradle, breathe like two golden fish, float, cut bait. How she pirouettes beyond her Fabergé egg, nest and prison, wanting to belong, to claim an address or body, resign from all bogus love me marathons, to savor freedom, oh concerto, rhapsody, plie, leap, sway. Webster's concise offers no glimmer or knowing in this cognition, lacks negative capability. Twirl, girl, as your fairy tale cursive undulates with rain, doubt, the lotus, high notes, and hunger. Fresh from what happens, oh, 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 to haiku in a tutu, rain or the soul. Thank you. And my last poem, I decided to switch the venue since many people here are either in New York or Oregon. I'm taking you to Lubbock, Texas, and the Florida Everglades. And this is dedicated to Campbell McGrath, another one of my teachers. Blue Grace. As dust devils spin outside Lubbock, which the mind says isn't much, this alien flat land peppered with oil rigs, twangs, and rodeo clowns. Even here, you stumble into a state of blue grace. Maybe the dry air smells of ginger, or gravity falls up, or maybe poppy fields bloom above the drugs. You are solitary, yet not alone. No more hogwash somewhere beyond almanacs and the cardboard houses of the poor. Elsewhere, the anhinga shrieks, look at me, as she wings it over the Everglades, sawgrass, evermore, evergreen, ever afterly, in a world where you seldom find a word ever green or blue enough. As the night heron lifts its little claw and a gecko scrambles up the palm, and fear somehow forgets to click its language of knives, take me along, even though I am foreign as a limpkin pecking its way through swamps. You hope today begins the golden journey, mate or sunrise. Maybe you will really listen or inherit a voice with fabulous wingspan, hungry for horizon. Maybe today you barometer language. Let anguish languish, for poetry is a second tongue, and the prayers you do not hear only mean you are not equal to your longings. For there is a beauty we must all die to reach, every syllable a revolution, a plot against reason. Now put this note in a bottle and set it afloat. Someone will love you for it. Thank you. And thanks to my students who attend. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. That was a real treat. And not only do I just adore your quirky, inventive language that seems to be quite the trademark of your poetry, I really admire your courage to be vulnerable and honest on a topic that a lot of writers and poets shy away from. And I appreciate your candor and your really fun poetry on this topic. So thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you for supporting me and assisting me through what I think you may have said something about liberal prudes. Thank you.
You know, on a side note, we've have a little back porch bunny that's been visiting us every day of the pandemic. And about a week ago, he disappeared, and I've been really worried about him. And as you were reading your poems, and we all know what bunnies like to do, he came back. So I love that. So thank you for that too.
New era.
Oh gosh. Okay, our next featured poet is Penelope Scambly Schott, author of Sophia and Mr. Walter Whitman. Penelope Scambly Schott is a past recipient of the Oregon Book Award for Poetry and author of a novel and several books of poetry, including her 2018 prize-winning chapbook, November Quilt, and her recent book, On Dufur Hill, about a small wheat-growing town in Central Oregon. Her co-author, Sophia Schott Sweetdog, is a 4-year-old white goldendoodle, and the niece of Lily Schott Sweetdog, who happened to co-write Lily and Rumi, a love story, a few years ago. And it looks like Penelope is getting our co-author, Sophia, trying to bring her to the camera. There she is. Yay, Sophia. Hello, hello. So let's have a big round of applause for Penelope Scambly Schott. Take it away, Penelope.
I'm unmuted, and here is Sophia, but she was sleeping and she really thinks it's very rude to wake her up. So anyway, we have at the back of the book about the authors, and you've heard about me, but Sophia Schott Sweetdog is a 4-year-old white goldendoodle, and she is the niece of Lily Schott Sweetdog, who wrote a book called Lily and Rumi, a love story. And Mr. Walter Whitman is a greatly admired 19th century American poet who wrote Leaves of Grass. So now you've met all the authors. Here's the first poem in the book. Oh, and also, I don't know if you can see it, but this is the wonderful cover that Robert did, putting Whitman and Sophia in the same picture. What the dog thinks. First off, woof, 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 woof. That's pentameter. See, I know all about poetry. I've read widely in a used Norton anthology I chewed next to the dumpster. So I know how those old dudes used to rhyme. I also know Mr. Whitman composes in free verse, like I do. But second off, or maybe most important of all, please don't call me the dog. I am Sophia, Sophia the First, Sophia the Great. I have the softest white fur. And then in italic, stolen from Walter, I celebrate myself and sing myself. I can lick my own crotch. I can smell field mice scrabbling under the grass. My guru. So Walter told me, and Walter is so often right. Be curious, not judgmental. Wise advice. Whatever I find in the road merits a full snifferoo. Smashed, rotten, stiff, all good by me. I say to the mummified skunk, and your very flesh shall be a great poem. But I sure wish the tail wasn't missing. And then a few poems about a rather unfortunate incident. And, you know, probably better if no young children hear this. When people call me bad dog, any dumb hen should have known I can run faster. Okay, I admit it. I am as bad as the worst, but thank God, poor dog, I am as good as the best, most especially at running. So if I wasn't supposed to kill those stupid chickens, why did they run? Contrition. About the chickens, it got bad. The chicken lady came over and cried. I wanted to lick her hand. Instead, I curled up into a small ball on the floor and went to sleep. The thing about dogs is they do not lie awake in the dark and weep for their sins. Still, that whole night, I didn't jump up on my people's bed. I didn't press my spine against her back. I didn't poke my muzzle into his hand, not even for 5 minutes. Walter understands. He also says I should call him Walt because we're such close friends. Walt tells me, these are the days that must happen to you. Except it wasn't day, it was night. And oh, such a long night. When the coyotes howled on the hill, I felt like a chicken. Next poem in this unfortunate sequence. Maybe she's still mad at me. Chicken, 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 chicken. Give me a break. I couldn't help myself. God is a mean-spirited, pugnacious bully bent on revenge against his children for failing to live up to his impossible standards. I bet my favorite poet understands. He believes in doing whatever you're called to do. He says so himself. From this hour, I ordain myself loosed of limits. Yeah, I did kill those 2 chickens. Or was it 3? A white one, a gold one, and I don't remember. But Mr. Walt isn't mad at me. The road to wisdom is paved with excess. He understands. Listen to him whisper with his lips close to my ear. I whisper with my lips close to your ear. I have loved many women and men, but I have loved none better than you. Of course, Walt still loves me. I am still one truly excellent dog, and my people should know it. She has to get over being mad. Soon, I hope. Well, that was the chicken episode. It's not as easy as you think being a dog. This one is called My Terrible Discovery. Sometimes, by mistake, they call me Lily, which is definitely not my name. Now I know why. Oh, something pernicious and dread. An old dog down the street told me the bad news. I am not the first. There was another dog before me. Another dog wore my leash, drank from my bowl, ate from my dish. Oh, baffled, balked, bent to the very earth, I perceive I have not really understood anything. This Lily dog, she used to sleep with my people. Endless afternoon. My person fills my water dish up to the brim, and then she heads out without me. The latch clicks. I run to the window, shove my nose between the curtains, watch her leave in the car without me. Now I jump onto the couch, knock down some pillows. Next I turn in a circle and curl up for a nap. After a long time, I open one eye, listen to the quiet, take another nap. I stand up and shake. I sniff my food dish, boring as ever. She's still not back. The clock indicates the moment, but what does eternity indicate? I'll be old by the time they eat dinner. I'll be older by the time I get to lick their plates. His eyes. Some days I puzzle about my 2 humans. Do they love me enough, even after the chickens? I'm pretty sure my guy does. I just have to look at him. What is it that you express in your eyes? It seems to be more than all the print I have read in my life. And as you know, I'm a big reader, mostly of Walt. My he person goes all gooey face, saying how cute I am. I exist as I am, that is enough. I'll be doing something perfectly ordinary. Maybe lying on my back in a chair with my 4 legs up in the air and my muzzle pointing down to the floor. And he'll make her come look, because men don't have enough words. I mean, most men. Mr. Walt has plenty. Here's what he just told me. I sing the songs of the glory of none, not God, sooner than I sing the songs of the glory of you. Did you catch that? Mr. Walt writes you, meaning me. No wonder I love his songs. Me again. Who else? If I didn't exist, the world would be poorer. Quote, I find no sweeter fat than sticks to my own bones. Not that I'm fat. My ribs are smoothly covered, and I have a beautiful waist. I shake my head, and an ear flips inside out. The wind tickles the pink inner skin. Oh, I watch my shadow darken the weeds. Seeing, hearing, feeling are miracles. And each part and tag of me is a miracle. I shake harder and my tags rattle. License, rabies vaccine, ID. I'm fully, completely, 100% legal. Probably more socially acceptable than Walt, if you omit the unfortunate episode with those chickens. Though I know we both sniff butts. Walt should really know better. I'm a true Whitman fan, but even the greatest can get it wrong. Do you know what Walt said about animals? He called us placid, as in, I think I could turn and live with animals. They are so placid and self-contained. Self-contained maybe, but placid? That's just plain nuts. He must have met some sleepy old chow chow. Even my people know better. But I forgive him. I do. Even more joy. Joy, more joy, bliss, pleasure, gladness, enjoyment, cheeriness, happiness. Not in another place, but this place. Not in another hour, but this hour. Sanguinity, exuberance, exhilaration, joy, joy, glee, 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 zest, gusto, joie de vivre. Oh, wow, how great to be a dog. Okay, I'll stop jumping. And I'm going to read one more. High praise. Reader, don't quit now. We're getting near the end. The words of my book, nothing. The drift of it, everything. I hope you learned something useful about my good friend Walt. I can say with all sincerity, he is the most dog-like poet I've ever met. And that is one huge compliment. Kudos, plaudits, lauds, hand claps, 4 paws to Mr. Walter Whitman. Yay, 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 yay. That's it. And I'll mute myself now.
Oh my gosh. That was so much fun, Penelope. I mean, no other poet reminds me of a dog more than you. I mean, you have embodied that dog. That is just phenomenal. I love the way you brought in the voice of Walt Whitman, and this whole book, the chickens. I mean, it's just such a fun collection, and I just have to thank you for writing it, because good God, it's been one hell of a year. And we need this book. We need this levity. We need this joy. So I just can't thank you enough for writing it and letting us bring it to the world, because
thank you for publishing it. And thanks to Robert for doing the portrait session. That was the last bath Sophia had right before her portrait.
Well, I'm happy to say that Robert has had a bath since then. Oh gosh, are we having fun or what? Okay.
Bye.
And that brings us to our final poet for tonight, David Belmont. David Belmont is the author of World Gone Zoom, Notes from the American Epicenter. He is a mixed media artist and community organizer living in New York City. David writes memoir, short fiction, and poetry, as well as instrumental music. His work has appeared in The Poeming Pigeon, Wildflower Muse, and Fish Food magazine. He is currently the co-music director of the Castillo Theater and has been a professional musician for 50 years. You can find his recordings on Spotify, iTunes, and Amazon. It's my pleasure to welcome David Belmont.
Thank you, Shawn. Wow, we had sex and dogs. That pretty much covers the entire universe. So I'm not for nothing. We're dog people around here. We have an 8-year-old Labradoodle named Penelope. I kid you not. Okay, well, thank you for having me, and thank the Poetry Box for doing such a wonderful job on the book. I love that community. I actually came to Portland to read when you published the first piece that I sent you, and met some of you in person. Remember that? In-person meetings. This book I started to write it on March 12th of last year. Just when New York was about to go into lockdown, I thought it was one poem that I was going to call World Gone Zoom. Then they really locked down New York on the day I finished the first poem. So I said, well, maybe I'll take some more notes. Then it became, I'll write a poem a week. Then it was several poems a week. And then it was a book. So that kind of grew organically. I am going to excerpt from the book. It is literally a diary. Every poem is dated. And I'll warn you in advance, I'm a liberal employer of epigraphs. Thank you. March 16th, 2020. World Gone Zoom. Why in the world are we here? Surely not to live in pain and fear. Why on earth are you there when you're everywhere? John Lennon, 1970. What you up to? Washing my hands? With you on that. Been doing it for 20 minutes. Supposed to be 20 seconds. I'm front loading. People in Italy are singing from their balconies. Folks in Pennsylvania are praying for toilet paper. Social distancing? Modern alienation not good enough for you? Gonna get on the subway, hang out with the germs. From ban the bomb to ban the bug. The original title of Elvis Costello's Armed Forces album was Emotional Fascism. This is the Euro-American baby boomers, World War II. March 30th, 2020. Life during wartime. This ain't no party, this ain't no disco, this ain't no fooling around. David Byrne, 1979. So this is war. Xmas is over. Unfortunately, the germs didn't sign on to the Geneva Agreement. John Lennon's imagined world turned unsafe for hippies and just about everyone else. Kim and I are living in a studio. She calls it our student apartment. In honor of that, she's playing some Joni Mitchell. Joni didn't much like hippies, but hippies adored Joni, as did just about everyone else. Hospitals are overrun, restaurants are closing, the economy is in shambles. As the Freak Brothers used to say, dope will get you through times of no money, Better than money will get you through times of no dough. Me, I'm just looking to separate the high from the anxiety. Trump just announced he was extending the federal social distancing guidelines till the end of April and moving Easter to mid-May. The shape of the space-time continuum keeps shifting. Ambulances keep pulling up to my building. My niece Ami in New Haven gave birth to a boy at 2 a.m. last Monday. Life goes on. April 15th, 2020. Thank you. How long blues? Heard the whistle blowing, couldn't see no train. Leroy Carr, 1928. An underground bohemian club, pairs of people at small circular tables, 6 feet from each other in random pattern. Persian percussionists provide the background as ambient sounds wander around the room. Causality, a slippery slope in the best of times, has gone awry. America has gone from red and blue to black and blue. History has come from behind the curtain. Politicians ponder the possibility of reopening. What follows pause? Play, fast forward, rewind? We scratch our heads wearing gloves. Zoom cocktail parties are all the rage at any time of day. The gap between the rulers and everyone else is widening by the hour. Ordinary people of the world unite. You have nothing to lose and a world to rebuild. Arundhati Roy is urging us to travel light. So when you re-enter, leave your debt and data at the door. Thank you. April 19th, 2020. Henry Grimes. We lost another sweet soul this week for the second time. Given up for dead in the late 60s, Henry was discovered in 2002 for the second time. Ironically, his second career was longer than his first. I feel blessed to have seen him many times. Once I saw him play a duet with himself. Feathery round bass notes accompanied by airy harmonics. I hope you come around again, Henry. Thank you. April 21st, 2020. The corner store. She returned to the bodega for the bag she couldn't pay for the first time. She was back with the money, but without her mask. Forgot it on the kitchen table. They let her in. We let her go to the front of the line. Her eyes wild behind smooth, dark, black skin. She said, I hope when this gets worse, they don't bite our faces off. I had to agree. I hope we don't die of desperation or despondency. April 27th, 2020. We're in previews. When the going gets weird, the weird turn pro. Hunter S. Thompson, 1971. Florida's governor reopened some beaches just in time for a late spring break. Georgia's governor wants to reopen tattoo parlors. Can't wait to get a mask tattoo on my face applied at a proper social distance. A new Rolling Stones single just dropped. England's newest hitmakers. What year is this? What century is this? What planet is this? Living in a Ghost Town, the movie. Screenplay by Samuel Beckett. Score by Frank Zappa, with selected sound cues by Sun Ra. A woman jogs by, muttering, "It would be nice to not know that nothing is happening." The checks from Trump say, economic impact payment. Now, what is that supposed to mean? Uncle Andy wants us to act prudently in connection with the facts. We're getting ready for reopening. Watch out for us. May 11th, 2020. Americans in Conversation. And it's one more day up in the canyon, and it's one more night in Hollywood. Adam Duritz, Counting Crows, 1996. Central Park, COVID culture. An athletic man pushes a carriage, taking the baby out for a run. A young mother and daughter jogging in an Eastern European language. A bird watcher packing a machete, bushwhacking the North Woods. Pairs of people on motorized bikes enter the park at midnight to enjoy the clear track on the oval. Social distancing on Fluid Parade. Evaluating mask etiquette is unavoidable. The nightly grassroots concerts from across the street made it onto G0 World. Automatic weapons in the Michigan State House Gallery. Bikers running red lights and doing wheelies in front of acquiescent cops. 15 minutes of fame survives the pandemic. Sports stadiums now empty foxholes. Broken plays, halftime oranges. Hand sanitizer as Huxley's Soma. Air-conditioned masks for summer. Gig work dissolves in a puddle of red ink in the New York Times. Not our parents' Great Depression, when rich people jumped out of windows. Now they just cash their bailout checks. Uncle Andy says we haven't yet killed the beast. I hope we've at least stabbed it with our steely knives. Some folks want to go back to normal. Arundhati Roy says that's the last thing we'd want to go back to. Karl Marx says you can change the past, but you can't go back to it. Thomas Wolfe says you can't go home again. No worries, mate, we're already here. Thanks. May 20th, 2020. No chains around my feet, but I'm not free. Where is the love to be found? Bob Marley, 1972. Purple dawn over Manhattan. Lush spring turf underneath. Mask up, mask down. Having a semblance of a day. Who knows what the virus is up to? The germs ain't talking. Uncommunicative, yet communicable. Bodies pile up as we can't bury the dead. The return of the Tauntaun Makutes. Outside my window, there's an open-air body shop and no overhead garage where the mechanics eschew masks and smoke weed. Coronavirus parties, anti-vaxxers and anti-maskers only, wearing super spreader t-shirts. Uncle Andy getting a tan on his terrace, calling nursing homes. E.O. Wilson is turning over in his grave, and he's still alive. Get tested, quantify uncertainty. Reopening in America. Where is Gil Scott-Heron when we need him? Date check. May 25th, 2020 is the day that the torture murder of George Floyd went viral. June 1st, 2020, On the Corner. I'm standing at the crossroad, I believe I'm sinking down. Robert Johnson, 1936. Medical masks double as yarmulkes. Street muffins taste better with mask down. Limited presidential campaigning, something to seriously consider for the new normal. Terror has transformed to malaise. I guess Cuomo was right to call it pause. In Minneapolis, the police just hit play. We're pulling out of Afghanistan. Can we pull out of the pandemic and police brutality? June 21st, 2020. View from my terrace. She's a rock and roll singer and a true dead ringer for something like you ain't never seen. Robbie Robertson, 1970. Trump got punked by TikTok teens. Uncle Andy's roadshow closed to rave reviews. No one wants it to reopen. All manner of wheeled devices scurry through the streets. Pedestrians dodge them, their faces at half mask. Fireworks on oral display all night long. Their debris hits our now closed first floor windows. Dave Chappelle does 27 spot-on minutes, about 8 minutes and 46 seconds. I share his love for the young protesters, creating the most democratic moment in the history of the world. Black Lives Matter, marching with LGBTQ. Fred Newman's demonstration dream comes to life. Our organizing activity is a drop in the ocean because the ocean showed up. Time for a swim. It's Father's Day. My father would have loved this. Thank you. And I'm going to do one more. This is kind of a bonus track. It's a more recent pandemic-inspired poem that I dedicate to a public figure who I imagine is greatly relieved and is certainly rejuvenated by the change of administrations in Washington. It's called Dynamic Duo. Groucho Marx and Anthony Fauci are joining forces. The Grouch and Fauch tour. Anthony will charm us with his folksy brand of epidemiology, while Groucho transforms Anthony's hard science into one-liners. Easy on the eyes, easy on the mind. Ghostwriters wanted. Thank you.
Wow. David, that was incredible. You know, I have to say, I've been reading a lot of pandemic poetry lately, as I'm sure we all have. And your approach, bringing in the music, wrapping the tragic in this blanket of irony and humor is really quite fresh.
Oh, thank you.
And it's quite a testament to your talent as a writer to have created a book on such a heavy topic and yet make it such a fun read. I have to say, just working on this book with you really brought me a lot of comfort throughout this past year. So I personally just want to thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. Writing it brought me a considerable amount.
That's good. That's good. You make us look at some really hard truths, but you do it in a fun way, you know. So we're not ready to like kill ourselves, you know. So I appreciate that. And I want to remind everybody that David's book is coming out on May 18th. And so we're still have a few days left for the pre-sale period. So you can still order his book at a little discount on our website. So be sure and check that out. And I want to thank all of our fantastic poets tonight. You guys were just all absolutely fabulous. And I want to thank our audience for joining us for another edition of the Poetry Box Live. You know, as poets and authors have been impacted, obviously, by the closure of bookstores and our favorite coffee shops and reading venues across the country, it's really meant a lot to us, to both Robert and I, that all of you have joined us here each month on Zoom to celebrate everybody's poetry. So thank you for that. Next month, our show will be on Saturday, May 8th at 4 p.m. Pacific. And our featured poets that month will be Diana Vallee, Zina Azam, and Julia Paul. And to keep up to date on upcoming shows, new releases, submission opportunities, please subscribe to our newsletter by going to thepoetrybox.com, where you'll find a sign-up form at the bottom of each webpage. So thanks again for joining us today. Feel free to unmute yourself if you want to chat and ask questions of the poets. I hope you all have a fantastic weekend, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you all for this. It was wonderful.
Thanks, Christine.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Carol, for joining us.
You bet. Thanks for having such great people read. Some of my favorites.
Yeah, they were all great.
Thank you.
It was fun, something needed. Thank you.